Hello and welcome to this November 2021 astrology forecast. I am Poetic Heretic and I am here to present to you what I consider to be the most important astrological data for the month. We will not cover every little thing in every last detail because that would be too much. We will, however, cover the main events. And this month, there are quite the powerful events indeed. Keep in mind that all times in this video are Eastern Time and there is a shift from daylight to standard time on November 7th. Adjust your time zone accordingly. As an aside before we begin, I would like to let those who have been following me for a while know that I've decided that I am going to try to do one of these forecast videos every month from now on, regardless of what other content I may or may not create on this channel. It has felt increasingly weird to me to work with astrology every day, yet keep my knowledge of it more or less to myself, so this way I can share at least some of it and hopefully benefit other students of astrology out there as well, or just those who are curious about the future. Unlike in the past, however, I intend to do one main forecast video per month where we look not at the future for any one particular sign, but at the mundane astrology applying to everyone of all signs. I present here the same kind of astrology that I use and practice in my day-to-day life, adjusted slightly to be applicable to a general audience. So without further ado, let us begin. The first main event we have to examine is the new moon in Scorpio on November 4th at 5:14 p.m. The new moon is the beginning of a new month-long cycle, and this one really sets the tone for the month. You see, there is no sense in waiting any longer to reveal this. The main theme of this month is the highly explosive nature of Mars moving through Scorpio and both squaring Saturn and opposing Uranus as it does so. This is indicative of the potential for a great upheaval, and we will examine it in more detail shortly. The reason that is relevant here is because, as you can see in the chart on screen, this new moon is almost perfectly opposite Uranus and still pretty closely square Saturn. So right from the start, we are getting a dose of the tense, stormy energy to come. The Saturn-Uranus square specifically has been a theme this whole year, and it will continue to be a theme for much of next year, as order and structure-seeking Saturn literally squares off against rebellious and freedom-seeking Uranus, symbolizing that struggle within us all and in opposing factions in the so-called outer world. Things come to a head in this area this month as Mars activates and aggravates these already stressful conditions. Expect this theme to be stirred up on or right around November 4th when we have this new moon. With it taking place in Scorpio and opposing Uranus and Taurus, the new moon appears to emphasize that somehow our complex passions are at odds with our simple desire for freedom, both of which put stress on our need for order and structure with Saturn in Aquarius. Again, this is some kind of new beginning or new month-long cycle that stirs things up and sets the tone for the month, like the first crack of thunder as a looming storm approaches. On November 10th at 6:25 p.m., we have Mars square Saturn, signaling the first main phase of this great tension. This will be when the War of the Malefics truly begins. Mars square Saturn indicates that our action, motivation, anger, or desire is putting stress on our need for order, structure, stability, and discipline. I am not here to sugarcoat things. This is indeed a very difficult aspect, probably one of the worst astrology has to offer. However, I believe there is always a way to work productively with the energy. With Mars and Saturn in particular, if you can somehow hold both the energetic motivation and impulsiveness of Mars as well as the stabilizing and disciplined nature of Saturn simultaneously, you may have some success in harmonizing these energies. It is like driving a car. Mars is the accelerator, Saturn is the brake. Use both strategically and correctly, and you can really get somewhere. Things get even more interesting when we notice that Mercury is with Mars and the Moon is with Saturn. This very strongly indicates that our minds, Mercury, may be where the Mars impulsiveness plays out, whereas our emotions, the Moon, may be where our need for structure is felt. And so we have our action-oriented minds in a stressful conflict with our emotional need for stability at this time. Additionally, we also have Uranus, of course, already very much in the picture, further emphasizing the upheaval and desire for freedom and/or rebellion throughout this process. People will likely go a little crazy around this time. Speaking of crazy, on November 17th at 12:11 p.m., we have Mars opposite Uranus, so it has now been 1 week from the time that Mars perfectly squared Saturn to the time that it now perfectly opposes Uranus. Thus, the entire week from November 10th through the 17th is sure to be a wild week. However, on the 17th, when we have this exact Mars-Uranus opposition, the energy really peaks, or gets close to peaking, with the full moon also now only less than 2 full days away. With Mars in Scorpio opposite Uranus and Taurus, our deeply passionate action, motivation, anger, or desire is at odds with our simple desire for freedom and or rebellion, both of which continue to put pressure on our need for stability and structure with Saturn in Aquarius. The moon is with Uranus on this particular day, indicating the probability for sudden, shocking developments connected with this stressful upheaval. It also simply further activates the ongoing Mars-Saturn-Uranus theme we have already been over in a more pronounced way. The moon is not only what we feel, it is what we feel right here and now. Thus, most of us will be feeling the tension, stress, and craziness on this day very powerfully. Soon after this, on November 19th at 3:57 a.m., we have the full moon in Taurus. The full moon is where things come to a head and the energy really peaks in a powerful way. While this full moon is still on axis with the Mars-Saturn-Uranus points of upheaval, it is thankfully quite far from them by degree, signaling a potential, albeit stressful, improvement in the situation. For those new to astrology, a full moon is the same thing as a sun-moon opposition. Thus here, when the moon part of the full moon is in Taurus, the sun part is in Scorpio. One of the most fascinating things about this dynamic to me, and that we have already alluded to in this forecast, is the simplicity of Taurus versus the complexity of Scorpio, and I believe this full moon will activate that dynamic or polarity within each of us. Notice that the lunation rulers Venus and Mars are sextile one another, as they have been for some time by this point in the month. That implies that while we may feel this inner division as we do with every full moon, there is some other means by which we find support, especially with one another, but also even within ourselves. I see an increased potential for harmony with this full moon that we do not normally have. Furthermore, the full moon axis is closely square Jupiter, and I also see this as a good thing. Jupiter wants to step in and offer solutions to the ongoing crisis, and this full moon provides it the opportunity to do so. The full moon itself is trine Pluto, indicating deep, powerful breakthroughs and transformations at this time. And finally, we also have Venus trine Uranus, as if to suggest that there is something new and exciting at the time of this full moon that we really like, that we really enjoy, that we really take pleasure in. This too will likely manifest as a sudden breakthrough. And remember, though it is 15 degrees away, the full moon is still co-present with Uranus, so this whole time, about November 18th and or the 19th, depending on where you are located at, is very likely to have sudden, perhaps even shocking developments. The final event we will examine for November is on the 28th at 11:39 p.m. when we have a striking Sun-Mercury conjunction in Sagittarius. On this day or night, depending on where you are, the light of the sun is activating our mind, symbolized by Mercury in a powerful way. Expect increased mental activity, communication, or travel. Significant messages may be received. Technological breakthroughs may occur. All of this may be of an optimistic, idealistic, or far-seeing nature with the influence of Sagittarius. The conjunction is also sextile Saturn, indicating there is a stabilizing influence on these communications, travel, mental activity, or whatever. Something is being made real. In addition to the sextile to Saturn, the conjunction is in a powerful trine to Chiron, itself also sextile Saturn at this time. This suggests breakthroughs involving the healing of our wounds. It is as if the cosmos are saying that there is the high probability for a communication breakthrough in a stable medium that facilitates or helps facilitate the healing of wounds either in ourselves and or others. That would be one possible manifestation anyway. However, the energy specifically manifest for each one of us will be different but will always match the themes just described. This Sun-Mercury conjunction sextile Saturn trine Chiron is a most notable interlocking of energies that is sure to make for some very noticeable events in all of our lives. At the same time that this is happening, Mars is closely trine Neptune, indicating a breakthrough involving our action, motivation, anger, or desire, as well as loss, confusion, mystery, or spirituality. When Mars trines Neptune, it is often as if our actions are guided by something mysterious, something non-physical, something that transcends the material realm. Mars wants clear direction, and Neptune makes things anything but clear, so Mars often does not like Neptune. But when their energies harmonize as they do here with this powerful trine, Mars can far more easily get its clear direction, though where it gets it from may not be so clear. Fortunately for Mars in this scenario, it doesn't need to be. The phrase acting on faith describes a Mars-Neptune trine very well. I think this Mars-Neptune trine will be particularly pleasant because we also have Venus in Capricorn forming supportive sextiles to both Mars and Neptune as it is happening, blessing this breakthrough with what we love, like, enjoy, and what brings us pleasure. Needless to say, November is a very active month. There are many challenges this month. In fact, this month is where the challenges really peak relative to this whole year as well as the next few months to come. But with every challenge comes the opportunity for growth. Again, the biggest theme this month is the insanity and upheaval caused by Mars entering Scorpio and forming hard aspects to both Saturn and Uranus, two planets that have already been in a tense square all year, symbolizing the battle of freedom versus control. Mars really sets this square off in his typical aggressive and fiery way. My advice, as always, is to do your best to work with this energy rather than against it. No matter how crazy things may get this month, at least you can now know that it is only temporary, as is clearly indicated by the astrology. It is interesting to observe the shift in energy that takes place later in the month around the time Sagittarius season begins, and a strong emphasis on healing is made particularly around the very end of the month. Furthermore, as I briefly alluded to earlier, Venus and Mars are sextile one another nearly the entire month. This is because Venus is slowing down as she prepares to station retrograde next month, causing her to keep pace with Mars for an extended period of time. This is a most unusual and highly fortunate event, and I can only conclude that it must mean that while the general Mars-Saturn-Uranus insanity is going on all month, somehow behind or beneath that there will also be this deeply pleasant, harmonious energy conducive, perhaps, to our getting many of the things that we want. I would advise people to keep in mind that no matter what the circumstances, you always have choices. This month of wild energy can be a disaster or it can be an exhilarating adventure within your creative control. The choice is all yours. Have fun. I am Poetic Heretic. Thank you so much for watching my November 2021 astrology forecast. Please like and subscribe if you have not already, and I will see you next time.